recognizing the federal executive designation of Antifa as a domestic terror organization and affirming the importance of public safety, the rule of law, and peaceful civic engagement. Whereas the protection of life, liberty, property, and the rule of law is the highest obligation of government, and whereas communities are strengthened when residents, organizations, and public servants work together to promote safety, mutual respect, and civic responsibility. And whereas peaceful protest and lawful civic engagement are fundamental rights that contribute to a healthy and free society. Whereas the mayor of Battleground acknowledges growing public concern regarding incidents across the nation involving individuals and groups engaged in unlawful conduct, including violence, assault, vandalism, arson, intimidation, harassment, and obstruction of lawful assemblies. And whereas on or about September 22nd, 2025, the federal government issued an executive order addressing Antifa, identifying it as a domestic terrorist organization and citing concerns regarding coordinated unlawful activity and threats to public safety. And whereas the mayor of Battleground recognizes the significance of this federal action and the broader national concern regarding Antifa-associated activity reported in multiple jurisdictions. And whereas such unlawful conduct, regardless of affiliation or ideology, undermines public safety, damages communities, imposes financial and social costs, and threatens the constitutional rights of all citizens. And whereas violence and intimidation carried out under any political ideology are incompatible with the principles of a free and orderly society. And whereas law enforcement officers and first responders serve with dedication and place themselves at risk to preserve public safety and uphold the law. And whereas the preservation of a free society depends upon the consistent and impartial enforcement of the law and the clear rejection of political violence in all forms. Now, therefore, I, Eric Overholser, Mayor of the City of Battleground, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim the importance of upholding public safety, the rule of law, and peaceful civic participation within the community, and that violence, intimidation, and property destruction associated with unlawful activity in various jurisdictions constitute serious threats to community safety and civil order, and a reaffirmation of strong support for law enforcement and public safety agencies in the lawful prevention, investigation, and prosecution of criminal conduct, and that while peaceful protest and lawful expressions are protected rights, violence, intimidation, and destruction of property are criminal acts that will be met with full enforcement of the law. And I encourage all residents to uphold the rule of law, reject political violence in all forms, report criminal activity, and work together to preserve a safe, orderly, and free community. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you, Mayor Eric, for your consideration and acceptance of this proclamation. The principles expressed in this proclamation have historically been assumed that political violence is wrong, intimidation has no place in a free society, and the rule of law must be upheld equally for all. When we look around our nation, there are many reasons to be discouraged. Division, hostility, and contempt for one another seem increasingly common. We see moral confusion and social decay affecting many of the institutions that once helped hold communities together. Yet one principle remains clear and is self-evident. When evil is committed publicly, it must be condemned publicly. Silence in the face of wickedness only emboldens those who seek to achieve their goals through fear, coercion, or violence. This proclamation sends an important message. There may be places where terrorist tactics and political intimidation are tolerated or even rewarded, but Battleground is not one of those places. Our community stands for the peaceful resolution of differences, respect for the law, and protection of every person's rights. By and large, the people of Battleground support their first responders, value public safety, and strive to love their neighbors. We may disagree on some things, but we can unite around the belief that violence and intimidation are never acceptable substitutes for civil discourse. Mayor Eric, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for affirming these principles on behalf of our community. In a time when many are unwilling to speak plainly and right about right and wrong, you have demonstrated moral courage and conviction. You have planted your flag on the hill of truth and accountability, and I want you to know your community supports you in this decision. My encouragement to you is simple. Remain faithful. Continue to do what is right, even when it is unpopular. Continue to serve this community with humility, courage, and integrity. And above all, remember that public office is ultimately a stewardship entrusted to you by God. My prayer is that you would fear God more than man, seek his wisdom in your decisions, and serve this community having an audience of one. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.